Hello and welcome to this new tutorial. This is Dominic for CreateIndieGames.com, and in this tutorial we are going to learn how to create a game called Patty Bird, which looks like this. We've got the title screen here, and you can either go to see the high scores or you can start playing the game. Of course, I want to show you how the game works, so let's start playing. And you can press the left mouse button to make the bird jump up in the air. And the idea of the game is to try to avoid the obstacles. So try not to hit any of the clouds or any of the trees. But if you do hit them, then the bird just falls down and the game is over. And the game will display this high score screen, and then you can just go back to the main menu and start playing again. So let's get started and load some sprites into our new game. Go to create sprite, load sprite, then double click on the bird and let's call the sprite SPR_bird. And we also need some sprites for the ground. So open ground PNG and call the sprite SPR_ground. And we also need some trees. Load sprite, find the tree PNG file, and let's call this SPR_tree. And for this one I would like the center to be in the middle of the tree, so I set X to 32 and leave Y at 0. Then we go ahead and before we start creating the objects, let's also create a background. Load background, and then find the mountains PNG file, and let's call this BKG_mountains. Then go to the objects and let's start creating some objects for those sprites. I'll start with the obj_bird. Load sprite SPR_bird. And I set the depth to -2 because I want the bird to be in front of all other objects at any time. And we're going to create a second version of the bird called obj_bird static, which will also use the bird sprite. And we're going to use this for the menu. So when the menu is displayed, we want to see the bird as well, but we don't want the bird to react to anything. We don't want it to fly around. So we will use the static version, and then when the game starts we are going to change this to the non-static version. Okay, let's start and create another object for the ground, obj_ground, using the sprite for the ground of course, and set the depth to -1 because I want this to show up in front of the trees. And then create the object for the trees themselves, obj_tree, using the tree sprite. Now that we have finished that, we can go ahead and create a new room, and then go to settings and let's set this to let's call this room game, and let's set the width to 360 and the height to 640. 360 is exactly half the width of the horizontal resolution of my mobile phone, and 640 is exactly half of the vertical resolution of my mobile phone. And I choose this resolution because I want this to look nice on my mobile phone later. Then go to background and select some blue color to resemble the sky. How about this one here? Yeah, that looks nice. And then we can go ahead and start adding some objects. But before we do, let's set snap X and snap Y to 64. That will make placing the objects a little bit easier. And let's start with the ground, object ground. And make sure we go all the way to the end, and we need one more beyond the end of this room. Then let's start adding some trees, obj tree. And I'll place one here. Let's pull this up a little bit. And maybe one here. Leave some space between those trees. about the width of one sprite. Actually, here the gap is a little bit larger. It's actually 1.5 times the size of a sprite, but that's okay. We can leave it like that. And then let's go ahead and add the static bird for now. obj bird static. Let's place that in there. And then just close the room. Let's open the room again because I forgot to add the background to it. And select the background we just created, bkg_mountains, and set the Y to 260. And you can uncheck tile vertical because we don't need that, but make sure that tile horizontal is checked. And we leave the speed at 0 for now because we're going to set that through a script later. Now let's go ahead and go to resources, define constants, and let's add 2 constants that we're going to need later. The first constant is going to be called sprite_size, and we set it to 64. And the next variable is going to be called scrolling_speed, and we set its value to 5. This will be useful when we start adding scripts, which we're going to do now. So let's create a new script, and let's call this str_start_game. And before we can actually do what we need to do, we should go ahead and add another parent object for all the objects that are supposed to be scrolling later on. So let's call this obj_scrolling. We don't need a sprite for this one because this is just going to be a parent object. And then let's open object ground and set this as the parent object. And we do the same thing for the tree object. So let's set the scrolling object there. And then just reopen the script. And we want to start scrolling as soon as the game starts. So we can easily do this by using the with statement with obj_scrolling h speed equals minus scrolling speed. This will make sure that both the trees and the ground will start scrolling. And we would also like the background to start scrolling, but at a lower speed. And let's add a comment to this. Make the background scroll at a lower speed, since it is farther in the distance. And let's also add a comment to this. Start scrolling trees, ground, etc. And the last thing we need to do is change the static bird to the other one. Change static bird to an interactive one that can fly. And we're going to use the with statement again with object bird static. Instance change object bird, and we set this to true to make sure the events get executed. Next, we actually need to start to call the script. So we have to open the static bird again, add event, then go to mouse, global left button, and then go to control, execute code, and no, that's the wrong one. So let's delete that. Execute script, that's the right one, and then just select the script we just created. Okay. And we should also add a create event to this bird and make sure we reset the animation speed to 0. So go to set variable and set image speed to 0 to make sure that the static bird is not flapping. Okay, so once we click the left mouse button, the trees and the ground will start scrolling. But once they leave the left border of the screen, we have to make sure they jump back to beyond the right border of the screen. And we can do that by adding a script to the trees and the ground as well. So open the obj tree, add event step, and then go to control, execute code. And in this one, we will just check if the tree has left left border of the screen, and if so, reset its position. If outside the room, on the left, place it somewhere on the right. If x is less than or equal sprite size divided by 2, add the room width to the x coordinate plus sprite size. And we can pretty much copy this and open the ground object, add a step event there as well. Oh, I still have one there. That's from a previous recording, I guess. And let me just rewrite this just to make sure you can follow along. If x is less than or equal to sprite size, and this one we're going to change to 7 times sprite size, because 7 is the number of ground sprites that we do have in the room. Let's check this quickly and count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, 7 should be right. 7 times sprite size. Click OK, and then let's see if this works. So now here's our level. This is to the static bird, and once I click the left mouse button, all the objects start scrolling as planned. This looks pretty nice. And now we can turn to make sure that the bird actually moves up when we press the left mouse button. So let's do that. Open the bird object and then add an event, mouse, global left button. Then go to control, set variable, and drag it into the actions list. And we want the bird to jump up when the left mouse button is pressed, so set v speed to -9. And we also want to make sure that the bird will fall down when no button is pressed, so we have to set the gravity here. So just copy and paste by pressing Ctrl C and Ctrl V, then double click and set gravity to 1.5. The bird should be flapping a little bit faster when he's flying upward, so let's copy this once again. And let's set image speed to 0.7. And as a little finesse, we can make the bird's beak point upward when he's flying up. So once again, copy this, double click, and set image angle to 20. When the bird is falling down, the beak should actually start to move down as well. So add a step event, then paste this set variable in here again, double click to open, and set image angle to median -20, image angle -2, and +20. This will adjust the image angle by 2 in every frame, but at the same time it will also make sure that it's never going to be lower than -20 and never going to be higher than +20. When the flapping animation ends, we would like the speed of the animation to be reduced a little bit. So add another event, other animation end, paste this in here and set image speed to 0.4. And I think that's it for this part of the tutorial. So let's start the game quickly and let's see how this looks. Press the left mouse button to start, and the bird is flapping nicely, the beak is pointing upward, and it's slowly going downwards when no mouse button is pressed. So that's it for this part of the tutorial. Thanks for watching.